Welcome to In Edina, a program about the people, places, and activities all in the city of Edina. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and this program from City Hall, actually right in front of this year's parade route for the 4th of July. Let's talk about the parade first with a committee member, Jan Michalets. Welcome to In Edina.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us on this program, and I know a lot of activities go into putting together the parade, almost a year in the planning.
Mm-hmm.
And this year's theme is?
Let Freedom Ring.
Let Freedom Ring. How appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
How did you pick that theme?
All of the people on the committee were invited to submit themes, and then we voted on the internet. We voted electronically, and this was the one that won by far, got the most votes.
Typically, always a patriotic theme?
Typically one that will include just about anything that anyone would like to sponsor or decorate for.
It's got to be challenging to come up with something creative every year.
It is.
Okay. How many members on the committee?
There are about 15.
And you've got kind of a new group this year.
We do have a new group. We have a new leader, and he has brought some new talent and some new skill sets, and that's been a huge positive for us.
Kind of gives a shot in the arm into the same old parade that you have every year. It's been on this route along Eden Avenue,
yes,
correct?
Yes.
Where does it start and finish then?
It starts right kind of in front of the Perkins, and then it ends at 50th in France, 50th in Halifax, actually, kind of by the U.S. Bank.
So it kind of pours into the businesses, so it gives
does.
people something to do after they have enjoyed the parade.
It's a great route. It's shaded. It's not particularly long, so participants really like it because they feel like, they're viewed by about 15,000 people, but they don't have to be in the sweltering sunlight for a long time.
Well, even though the parade may seem like it's the same event every year, it's really different. You have different floats, you have different members, different bands. Talk a little bit about this year's planning.
We have the Richfield Band coming. We have the Edina Alumni Band, the middle school bands, the United South Central Band is coming. We also have some various horse groups from around Minnesota.
Icelandic horses.
Icelandic ponies come, yeah.
And the folks bring them in. Of course, you line them all up at the staging area and you bring them out, and people put together some floats. Mm-hmm. And this is probably the biggest event that goes on in Edina all year long.
Probably is. It's free. And we are finding with the economy, it started last year, that people are taking shorter trips and maybe staying closer to town. So our attendance went up last year, and we predict that it will again this year.
What do you anticipate it to be? Best guess?
More than 15,000, so somewhere between 15 and 20,000.
That's a lot of folks.
It is a lot of folks.
It must take a lot of volunteers to make the parade run smoothly. Mm-hmm. How do I volunteer, and what might I do?
If you go to EdinaParade.org, there is a button that says volunteer, and that will lead you through the steps. You might be responsible as a marshal for ushering units through the parade bands, groups.
Tell people where to line up,
how fast to walk, slow or faster. And we also need people to carry signs and banners.
Okay. And if I want to have a float in the parade?
Same website, EdinaParade.org. You can click on, and it will ask for your involvement as a participant.
So you have floats, you have bands, you have horses, you have churches that get involved. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you screen applicants to come in? Or
we do. We screen them for family appropriateness. This is attended by many children, so we want to make sure that there's nothing inappropriate.
Okay. How long does the parade take start to finish? Some of them seem to go on forever, and how long?
It's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, it's perfect.
From the time the first unit passes you till the last.
That's great. Now, sponsorship for the parade is important as well. We have a platinum sponsor in Lund Spirely, and many sponsors contribute funding for this because it does cost money to have a parade.
It does.
How do you bring all of that together? The foundation?
The Edina Community Foundation has been fabulous over the past several years to help us gain sponsors.
Especially in these times. I mean, this is one of those, activities that is still important because it does bring a community together.
It does.
So the investment is worth it?
It is. It's great advertising. It's great community support. It's great visibility.
Jan, I know it's a lot of work, but the committee sounds like it's a lot of fun. If folks want to get involved in the parade committee for next year, because you'll be planning soon after this parade.
EdinaParade.org. And we'd love more volunteers.
Great. So more the merrier.
More the merrier.
And thanks so much for putting together. I know it's volunteer work, but it's well worth it.
Oh, thank you.
Enjoy the parade.
Thanks.
This year's Grand Marshal is Raleigh Ring. Welcome to Edina and congratulations on the pick as Grand Marshal this year.
Thank you very much. I feel very honored for this honor.
That means you get to be the ribbon cutter and get everything started, and you'll be in the float waving to crowds as they also congratulate you and embrace the work you've done in our community, more than 30 years in the school system.
Yes, this is also my 89th birthday, and I'm celebrating 25 years of retirement. So
wow, you've got a lot to celebrate then, come 4th of July.
I'm very pleased and honored.
Well, you were chosen because of the work and the gifts that you've given our community, particularly in the school system. Let's talk about your career with about 34 years?
Yes, 2 years as a teacher and coach and 32 years as a principal. I came in the fall of 1950 with our first senior class, only 112 students.
Wow.
And to show how much we've grown, our largest high school enrollment was 2,743 in that last year before we went to 2 high schools, 71, 72.
So you've seen schools open, close, parking problems, changes in rules and changes in school systems and policies. And
yes, schools reflect society. And in the 50s, if you were in trouble in school, you were in trouble at home. But in the 60s, that changed, that individual rights and the music and the dress and the hairstyles and all of this changed.
I remember those hairstyles.
Yes, and parents didn't have as much say so then. And we had some tough times.
And technology changed schools as well, come the 80s and the 90s.
I'm not into computer age myself, and I don't think about computers, but our young kids know computers very well.
But you actually documented a lot of the changes in the school system over time in a book that you wrote, because you kept getting all these calls from people that said, what happened back then? Yes. And they said, call Raleigh. So you finally decided to document everything in a book.
Yes, I researched school board minutes, school newspapers. We had 2 high schools for 9 years, and then my personal experiences. And I think it was very helpful, but it's not a bestseller.
But you authored the book. It's called Remembering Edina High School, 1949 through 2006.
Yes.
That's a lot of stories.
Yes, it is. And when we have reunions, we've had several 50-year reunions, and my wife and I attend those, and there's a great interest in the book there. These kids can look up things and remember things. And
you don't pay attention to it maybe while you're in school, but when you're looking back and reflecting, there's a lot to remember. Clearly, you've given a lot of your time and skills. Our community has benefited by it. We named a street after you in 1981, Ring Road.
Yes, yes.
And now you'll be the Grand Marshal for the parade come 4th of July. Raleigh, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the honor.
A real crowd pleaser are the Jugheads, and they'll be juggling in the parade come 4th of July. And joining us to talk about the fabulous act, Paul Arneberg, founder and director of the Jugheads. Welcome to Edina.
Thanks, Lillian.
We really appreciate you coming. I see you brought some juggling materials with us.
It's always fun for the crowd to see a visual aid about what we do every year.
Well, and you've done a lot, because the program started really small, handful of kids.
Very much so, 10 kids and 94.
And now a ton.
140 kids, grades 3 through 12. And they range from all over the metro area. 80% of the kids live in Edina or go to Edina schools. The other 20% commute from as far as Shorewood in the west or St. Anthony Park in the east.
Wow, and this isn't just about juggling. You think to yourself, it's just juggling, but you know something, these are skills these kids are learning too.
Well, there's the obvious skills of the hand-eye coordination, but there's also the cognitive skills that increase, like math skills and spelling scores, and even the idea of abstract concepts, especially down to the 8 and 9-year-olds when they just start. But also the social skills are really significant, how they learn how to work together. And one of the favorite aspects of myself, along with a lot of the parents, is the age range. Having 8-year-olds interact with 18-year-olds on a regular basis, and the boy and the girl factor, it's nice to have all that kind of heterogeneous interaction with all these different ages.
And it's fun, of course.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Try to always emphasize that. But then the hard work is what makes it fun as well, because the harder the kids work, I always say what you put into Jugheads is what you're going to get out of Jugheads.
Jugheads, how'd you come up with the name?
Well, my wife came up with it because my brother has done a lot of barbershop quartet singing, and he said 2 syllables are great, and my wife kind of thought about that, and we thought about like a juggling fanatic, and Motorhead would be a car fanatic, Jughead is juggling fanatic. And then we had the kids, back when I was leading Edina Wise Guys of Edina Kids Club, we had the kids at that time in 97 or 98 vote on the names, and one was Edina Youth Juggling Company. But Jughead stuck with more kids because it was more universal, and it was also more juggling centered.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool name too.
Yeah,
I gotta admit, it's good branding for you.
Yes.
Why only 3, and what are these called exactly?
Well, these are clubs, not pins. Jugglers get crabby when you call them pins. They look like
Not
a bowling pin.
No, it's not a bowling pin.
Bowling pins are 3 pounds. These are only 9 ounces. They're just a mold of plastic with a wood dowel and then rubber ends. Now, some don't have the wood dowel, but these do. 3 is how you start juggling, and I always start with beanbags, not scarves, and certainly not clubs. And 3 is the basic pattern. One definition of juggling is a skilled manipulator. Another definition is 1 more object than you have hands for. So 3 is 1 more than the 2 hands. There is a famous juggler named Casey Bamer who has 1 arm, so he does at least 2 objects in the 1 hand.
Wow.
But the reason for 3 is it's nice. There's a lot of symbolism with 3. It's a nice way to, the pattern is a cascade, which is a infinity symbol. And once we get them to 3, that's when they're really called a juggler. And in the parade, 3 plus 3, we do the passing with the 6 clubs with a lot of the kids.
Wow, you really got this down to a fine
Well,
science.
I've done it full time for all these years, and that's what I think and eat and breathe, except for I take a lot of time off to recoup from all the energy I put out with the kids.
Yeah, it does take a lot of energy. And as you said, mind power too. I mean,
Yes.
they're passing on skills. Physically, they're getting challenged, and mentally, they're getting challenged, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And juggling is like the oldest art.
Yeah, it's about 4,000 years old. There's
Yeah.
a book called 4,000 Years of Juggling, and they actually have hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt with women juggling.
Wow. Okay. So the kids start with bean bags, and they probably don't get it right away. How long does
some
it take?
kids will take up to a year. 1 year.
Wow. Well, I've tried it, and I have to admit, I'm not so great at this.
Yeah, the average kid, the average 9 to 12-year-old will take about 3 to 10 hours, solid hours of throw, catch with 2 objects, and then getting to 3. Some kids will learn just by watching and then picking up and literally getting it without any practice. Other kids will take a year, and that's the kind of kid where I'll really give a lot of encouragement to, because they might learn how to balance on the globe or learn the unicycle first, but the juggling, there's something in the spatial orientation that just doesn't click with them. But if they stick with it, they're going to get it.
And that applies and transfers into other things.
Every area of life and relationships as well.
Yeah, you got to juggle relationships.
Well, yeah, and get through the hard times in order to get to the sweet stuff of the endurance.
Interesting. Now, 4th of July, how many Jugheads are you going to have out of the parade?
In the parade itself, I try to cap it at 50 because I have a lot of kids out of the 140 I have on a weekly basis. 50 is pretty big for us to try to fit into a 1 parade unit. Sometimes I let it bleed up to 60, but 50 is a good number. And I also try to match them up with passing partners. So when we stop, we have 3 whistle commands. 1 is march, 1 is stop and pass, 1 is stop and face the crowd and perform for them individually.
Wow. And you got to turn kids away because they really like it.
Yes, they do. And for that matter, I turn kids away from my regular school year clubs because I've had a waiting list all year for a couple of my programs. I have 6 clubs a week, and most of them are full all the time.
Wow. So if folks want to get involved in Jugheads, what should they do?
Jugheads.com is our website.
All right.
We also have summer camps, 5 weeks in the summer. 4th of July is right in the middle of that. And then our school year program starts in September, goes through June.
Paul, thanks for juggling all you do to make it happen. And we really appreciate you joining us on In Edina. See you at the parade.
Thanks, Lillian.
The 4th of July parade gives us an opportunity to honor our veterans and to bring them all together. Scott Crosby does just that. Thanks so much for joining us on In Edina.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Folks in the community probably know you best as the director of the John Philip Sousa Band.
That's probably where they would recognize me. Or if they see me in the grocery store, they remember me from someplace, but they're not quite sure where.
Well, clearly you've made your mark by bringing together about 80 veterans for this year's parade.
We usually get about 80.
That's a bunch.
Yeah, that's a bunch of guys.
And how do you go ahead and let them know that they can be a part of this parade?
Well, now it's kind of a tradition, and word gets around, word of mouth. 8 years ago when we started it, we did a little article in the local paper, and I would I'd tell veterans in our audience, a Sousa Band audience, that we were going to do this, and if they'd be interested, we'd love to have them participate. And from there, it just kind of grew by veterans calling veterans and letting them know about it.
But there's more to it than just getting them there. It's organizing their role in the parade. It's organizing the Army who provide trucks so that they have something to ride in.
Yeah, they got to have something to ride in. I'll tell you, when we first did this, it was 3 weeks of just really interesting, good times, because these guys had my phone number and they would call. And I'd ask them what they did, what branch of the service they were in, World War II, Korea. And I got some of the best stories. I mean, these guys they're citizen soldiers. They weren't, regular volunteer for the Army, go shoot them up. They were grabbed out of the jobs they were doing or right out of high school sometimes, like my dad. Mm-hmm. And they were gone for 4 years. And they came back and just had a life, and nobody had a parade for them. I mean, when World War II was over, it was over, and nobody wanted souvenirs. They didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to come home, have a glass of milk, get a job, buy a house.
And get on with life.
Get on with life. Mm-hmm. And so the first parade and every parade after that, these guys have tears in their eyes, because when the trucks roll down Eden Avenue here behind us on the first turn of the parade, the audience on the sides of the street kind of stand up in a wave and cheer. And
it's an opportunity to pay respect
absolutely
to the service that they gave us.
Mm-hmm. And I remember some of the comments these old guys, the first time we did this, it was, gee, nobody had a parade for me before. Mm-hmm. And it's about time. Mm-hmm. And it's just a moving experience.
And some of these guys reconnect too. And you're talking about different groups of how they work together in the armed service. Some of these groups are still together, and they're in their 90s.
Right. There's a co-pilot on a B-17 bomber, 8th Air Force out of England. They meet every Wednesday over at the Legion in Richfield. And it's the whole crew of a B-17 bomber over there, and they still stay together.
And some of them still fit in their uniforms.
Yes, they do. I mean, some of these guys, maybe they kind of blossomed out before, but as they got older, they came back in and they could get back in their Ike jacket. And it's pretty fun. And of course, when they get together, it's old stories. Where were you? Where have you been? Some of these guys find out that they were, literally just, a couple of miles apart from each other in Europe and didn't know it. And
wow.
Yeah, and it's just fun.
And what about veterans now, new veterans that perhaps did some service in Iraq most recently? Can you bring some of them together?
It's harder to get them. I mean, I try, but most of those guys are still active, and they start their training up at Camp Ripley in July 11th.
So
and
they
it's
won't
hard
be
to get
around.
them out.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get the Vietnam guys out. So if there's any Vietnam vets watching this, please call me. And here's my phone number, 952-922-4443. It's easy to remember. But those guys, we only have, 3 or 4 Vietnam
Or show
vets.
up day of.
Show up the day of. We'll fit you in.
You're lining
absolutely.
up at 9 o'clock, so if they come a little bit sooner.
We'll load up the trucks at 9 o'clock, come sooner, get a cup of coffee, have a roll. If you want to wear a part of your uniform, all your uniform, or no uniform, it doesn't matter. We'd love to have you come along.
We should have mentioned you're a veteran as well.
I'm a veteran.
And you've connections with the Army.
Well, I know enough
wink.
I know enough to ask the Army 9 months to a year in advance for any help, because you never know.
And the help they provide is they bring some trucks so these guys don't have to walk the route, although some do.
Right.
But many, given their age, will take a ride.
They'll take a ride.
Enjoy the parade that way.
And the Army is great. They send these trucks with the drivers and an assistant drivers, and they're out. I mean, one year we had a Marine vet that was in a wheelchair, and I turned around just as 4 of the National Guard guys were lifting the whole wheelchair into the back of the truck, and it was like, it was worthy of a sculpture on the mall in Washington. It was great.
Well, it's an excellent asset and an opportunity for us to pay tribute to our veterans. We thank them all very much for their service, and we can all celebrate the 4th of July and freedom coming soon. Scott, thanks so much for organizing the veterans.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
it's an honor and it's a pleasure.
Yeah, and for joining us on In Edina. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, the 4th of July promises fun from the morning parade to the fireworks late at night, and in between, shopping and more. And joining us to talk about the Edina Arts Center, Phil Johnson, and the Historical Society itself, Frank Carterell. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on In Edina.
Thank you.
It's going to be one fun day. And
Yes.
the Historical Society is going to have the schoolhouse open.
Yes.
Talk about what that, the era, the time, and what we'll see.
Well, actually, it's a one-room schoolhouse, and a lot of the people and kids have been there and seen it, but it will be open right after the parade for you to come and enjoy both the buildings, the Grange Hall and the old school. And of course, you will enjoy the school marm who will be there to explain, and also you can see the old desks, the old heater. The one-room heater is a wood stove that the kids had to heat with, and of course you will marvel there's no electronics at all, not even electricity. It was lit by candlelight. The lights now resemble the old candles, so it is electricity.
It's really fun to go there. And you know what? Reading, writing, and arithmetic really hasn't changed. There's no computers in the school, but the lessons are still the same.
That is correct, and it's still fun to go to.
And from the schoolhouse then, you can also check out Grange Hall.
That is correct, right next door.
Well, what we see in Grange Hall exactly?
Well, you'll see how the farmers met. That was patrons of husbandry was what it was started as. Actually, the Grange is patterned after the Masonic Lodge. The founder was a Mason, and it was the fraternal organization for farmers to present their case and to raise the prices, and also for recreation and time off and a little bit of relaxation from the drudgery of farming back then when there were no tractors.
Yeah. Now, Frank, I know you're president of the Historical Society, and you've been a part of that organization for dozens of years.
Yes.
But it's important to look back to understand where we are today and where we may go in the future.
That's true. You look back at the history of the pioneers who came to Edina. My great-grandfather moved to Edina in 1874, right after the Civil War, and the family has lived here, the Roberts family, and my name, the Carterell, my mother was a Roberts, have lived here for 6 generations. My 2 granddaughters live here in Edina, and we still have remnants of the family that moved here in 1874.
And it's worth knowing a little bit about history. Now, the Arts Center is going to have new and old on display.
Absolutely.
Pottery, painting, jewelry, glass. I mean, the list, movies, the list is endless.
That's right. And the Edina Arts Center will host an open house from 6:30 to 10:30 on July 4th. And we'll be part of the fireworks celebration over there. And when people establish their spot as they're waiting for the fireworks and the band concert and so forth in the park,
Yep.
then they can stroll a few hundred yards over to the Arts Center, and they can come in, and we have a student exhibition that will be comprised of artworks of all kinds and varieties that have been done by the students in the past year. And of course, our gift shop will be open, and we'll be conducting self-guided tours of a pottery department so people can look at the wheels and the kilns and so forth, all of the areas that the pottery students use. And then in the media studio, we'll be conducting demonstrations of how people can come in and transfer their old home movies to electronic media, DVD or digital tape. And then we'll also, of course, in the gift shop, there are just very unique articles.
Yeah, I've been in there. You can
yes.
buy some pieces of pottery,
Yes.
painting, jewelry, things that people have
Exactly.
made. I really love that
Exactly.
in there. And it's a little deceiving because you have a media studio, pottery, and a big spread out place. You've got to spend some time in the Arts Center to see all there is to see.
That's right. There's a lot going on, and we would welcome people to come in that evening and get a schedule of classes.
Yeah,
that
people can sign up and take classes and
Yes.
get involved as well.
Right.
So again, you're open from 6:30
6:30 until 10:30
Okay.
on that night
off Roslyn Park there.
in the northwest corner of Roslyn Park.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for bringing the treasures not only on the 4th of July, but year round for all of us to enjoy here in the city of Edina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it won't be long, and Eden Avenue behind me will be filled with 4th of July parade fun. We hope you'll have an opportunity to see the parade in person. If not, you can watch it live right here on cable channel 16. We'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us on In Edina, and to you for watching. Until next time, I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. Have a great day.